For nearly 60 years, the United States government looked its own citizens in the eye and said a place did not exist. Not a program, not a document, a physical location, buildings, runways, thousands of employees, satellites could photograph it, and when Americans asked about it directly, the answer was always the same. We don't know what you're talking about. That was the official position until 2013. And in the silence that denial created, one of the most enduring myths in modern history was born, not because people were irrational, but because the government gave them no other explanation for what they were seeing in the sky. This isn't really a video about aliens. It is about a government that deliberately allowed a false narrative to spread, because the truth was more classified than the conspiracy. Here's what the record actually shows. In 1955, the CIA acquired a remote stretch of Nevada desert, a dry lake bed called Groom Lake, roughly 125 miles northwest of Las Vegas. The mission was to develop and test the Lockheed U-2, a high-altitude spy plane designed to photograph Soviet military sites during the Cold War. The location was so desolate they nicknamed it Paradise Ranch, just to convince workers to go there. For the next 6 decades, it did not officially exist. No name on any public map, no acknowledgement from any official. Presidents were asked about it directly and deflected. A facility with its own air traffic control and security perimeter simply was not there, according to the United States government. Pause for a second. Thousands of people worked there. They had badges, they had salaries, they signed secrecy agreements, and the government's official position was that the place didn't exist. Then, on June 25th, 2013, the CIA released a 407-page declassified history. It named the base, it placed it on a map, it confirmed operations dating back to 1955, and for the most part, that is the official story. But buried inside that same document was something almost nobody noticed, and this is where the story changes. According to the CIA's own internal records, once the U-2 began flying above 60,000 feet, air traffic controllers across the United States started receiving a sudden, dramatic increase in UFO reports. Commercial aircraft flew at around 20,000 feet. Military jets topped out near 40,000. Nothing in the publicly known inventory flew that high. So when civilians spotted a silver object moving silently at altitude in the late afternoon sky, they had no frame of reference for what they were seeing. The CIA's own document estimated that over half of all UFO sightings in the 1950s and 1960s were probably classified American spy planes. So what were people actually seeing, and why weren't they told? Because telling them would have required acknowledging a program that did not officially exist. So the government allowed the UFO explanation to fill the space. And then, through Project Blue Book, its own official UFO investigation, it publicly concluded that no sightings represented unknown technology. At the exact same time, it was operating aircraft at Groom Lake that were beyond any publicly known technology. They were not lying about UFOs being unreal. They were lying about what the UFOs were. In effect, they allowed the myth to grow, and then publicly dismissed the people trying to explain what they were seeing. That is not speculation, that is what the declassified record describes. Now here's the part nobody talks about. The U-2 was just the beginning. The A-12 ox cart flew at Mach 3.2, 3 times the speed of sound. The F-117A Nighthawk was the world's first operational stealth aircraft. The B-2 Spirit followed. Every one of these aircraft, when first spotted by civilians, generated UFO reports. Silver triangles moving without sound, objects accelerating to impossible speeds, lights that made no sense at any known altitude, and every time the government said nothing, and this is the part most people miss. These weren't just secret planes, they were explanations hiding in plain sight. Does that make those sightings less real? Or does it make the government's silence more deliberate? And once you see the pattern, it is hard to unsee. The government helped create the phenomenon, allowed false explanations to circulate, built legal frameworks to prevent accountability, and maintained that posture across administrations and decades. Because if that happened once, there is no reason to assume it could not happen again. Now fast forward to today, and in July 2023, Congress held its first public hearing on unidentified aerial phenomena in more than 50 years. A former Air Force intelligence officer named David Grush, who served on the Pentagon's own UAP task force, testified under oath that the US government has operated a secret program to retrieve and study non-human craft, that the program was concealed from Congress, and that it was funded through misappropriated money. The Pentagon's official response was that no verifiable evidence of extraterrestrial activity has been found. Two arms of the same government, directly contradicting each other. on the record. So, who do you believe when the same government contradicts itself? Grosch's claims are unverified, they have not been independently confirmed. But here's the context they sit inside. We know the government denied a physical facility for 60 years. We know it allowed UFO narratives to spread rather than acknowledge classified aircraft. We know its own documents show it understood that its test flights were generating those reports. And we know significant portions of the Area 51 record remain classified today, more than 70 years after operations began. The established pattern is a government that lets people believe something false when the truth is more valuable than their understanding of it. And this is where the story stops being interesting and starts becoming uncomfortable. Workers connected to Area 51 claimed they were exposed to hazardous chemicals burned in open pits during classified aircraft work. When they got sick, they tried to find out what had been in their bodies so they could get treatment. The government said no. The case went to the Ninth Circuit, then to the Supreme Court. The workers lost. Some of them reportedly died without ever knowing exactly what they had been exposed to. The government protected the secret over the people. That happened inside the same fence, under the same classification framework being used today. This was never just a story about spy planes. It is a story about what a government does when it decides the public cannot handle the truth. It lets a myth fill the space. It mocks the people who try to explain what they saw. And when those people get sick and go to court, it invokes national security to make sure they never find out why. The last time the government said there was nothing in the Nevada sky, it was hiding the most advanced aircraft in human history. That part is no longer a theory. That part is documented. So the real question isn't whether something was there, it's this. If they were willing to lie about that for 60 years, what would they lie about now? And more importantly, would you even recognize it if they did? Tell me in the comments, because the record suggests that line may have already been crossed before, and the public did not find out until decades later.